The lesson.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go. We got the man, Sesk, in Sydney, man. How you doing?
Good, bro. Yourself?
Very good, very good. Thank you for taking the time to make it to the studio and shoot the interview, man.
Thanks for having me, man.
Now, me personally, I think the first time I heard your name was the joint Trap Talk, Trap Runners. Yep. And I was a bit late. I can't remember when that dropped, but I reckon I only heard that like 4 years ago.
Yeah, okay.
But when did that song drop?
Fuck. Now you got me. That would be at least maybe 5 years ago. I think off the top. I'm not 100% sure, but it was a while ago.
Now, obviously I was a bit late to the party with that, but I just remember when I heard it, I played it back 2-3 times, and I was just like, yeah, word, this is dope. And then I go down the rabbit hole, and being from South Australia, me personally, I've been a bit late to Sydney rap in general. You know, we had the Hilltop Hoods who popped off in the early 2000s, and whatever wave came through with that and under that was following that more so. So it's interesting to get you in as someone who's been around, you know, the Australian rap scene and the Sydney rap scene for a while. You know, mid-2000s, I reckon, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, easy.
And so I want to cover as much of your music career from front to back as we can. But I even want to go back a little bit further and, talk about before the music. Now, to my understanding, you're born in 89, West Sydney?
Yep. Now,
what part of West Sydney did you grow up in?
So very, very early years was Penrith. And when I say early, I mean early enough that I only have one memory from there. But then after that, it was Mount Druitt. I spent a couple of years in Mount Druitt, then a few years over Doonside, and then from about maybe 9 or 10 onwards, Layla Park. So that's kind of based in between Seven Hills and Blacktown there.
Yeah, okay. Now, as someone who, has never been, to Mount Druitt, Doonside, etc. From your experiences, what was it like growing up in those areas? All I really know is that they're relatively rough parts of West Sydney.
From what I recall from Mount Druitt and Doonside, or Mount Druitt in particular, I can't really recall much of that. I was only a young pup. But then Doonside, there was there was actually another Indigenous family, Aboriginal family there. So it was okay, you know what I mean? It was good. We knew who we were, they knew who they were, and we clicked, and good times. But then as I moved through to Layla Park, that's when I started experiencing just minor racism.
Okay. And then so at around about what age did you move to Layla Park?
So first and foremost, my family, my grandmother and grandfather were in that house in Layla Park for 60 odd years. So my mum grew up there. I probably would have been about 9 or 10. About 9 or 10. Yeah.
And when you talk about experiencing, racism there when you first moved there, what are some of the sort of things that you experienced at that age?
Just, the monkey, black this, black that. It wasn't very full on, only because, so my family, before I was even born, my family was the only Aboriginal family in that area. So, and my mother was the youngest of 5 girls. Now, they stood up and they punched on with men, grown fucking men, in order for us to not experience so much racism down the track. You know what I mean? They dealt with a fucking lot of it. So they had to fight men. They had no brothers. It was all girls. They had 1 or 2 brothers, but they were in Redfern way. So I didn't experience... It got to me, but it wasn't as full on as what it could have been.
Yeah, right. And then, so when you first got there, were there many other Aboriginal families in Layla Park, or were you one of the few?
No, so when I got there, we were still the only.
Okay.
Yeah, and then maybe when I was 13 or 14, another family come, and then a couple of years after that, another family. So now you'll see your random couple of black fellas here and there, but actual family wise and stuff like that, it was started with us, and then maybe two or three after us. You know what I mean? So.
And is there more Aboriginal families there now, and do you still live there, or is it different?
To my knowledge, now there are a few more. Not specifically in Layla Park itself, just on the outskirts like Seven Hills and Blacktown, stuff like that. I still have family there. I'm still there every couple of days or whatnot, you know. So.
And then like when you talk about experiencing a bit of racism when you first got there, over your teenage years, did that progressively ease up, or did it get worse, or?
I'd say it probably stayed around the same, maybe eased up a bit more, only because obviously I was young and I'd react. I'd react, but in saying that, it wasn't always, how do I put it? It wasn't always intent. It was more just because other kids around me were uneducated. Like, for example, most people think still to this day, Abo is short for Aboriginal, where it's a racial slur to us, you know what I mean? And it's not so much the kids' fault that they're growing up racist. They just don't know. They haven't been educated, you know what I mean? So it's kind of stayed on the same level, but also dropped down. But when I say dropped down, wasn't so much words, but it was more the looks that I'd get. And you know what I mean? Like, I looked at as an alien, so to speak.
Yeah, right. And then, like, when you talk about, the lack of education being one of the primary reasons why this sort of shit happens, we had a brief chat just off camera where you were explaining to me the difference between the term Indigenous and Aboriginal. I guess, and I found it very interesting because that's something that I always, wondered about. Can you explain again on camera, pretty much what you said to me off camera?
Yep. So, most people, a lot of people can be classified as Indigenous. You yourself can be. Old Bud over here could be, because the meaning of Indigenous is Indigenous to that land. So basically, you were born here, you grew up here, you're Indigenous to that land. That's how some people will interpret it. Also with Aboriginal, again, another European terminology. If you look at normal, the opposite to normal is abnormal, which is not right. This is what we're taught in schools. All kids are taught this in school, you know. So if you look at Aboriginal, that's the opposite of original, when that doesn't fit, because my people are original. We were the first, you know what I mean? So but in saying that also, there are a lot of elders that hang on, even young fellas like me, that hang on to that label of Aboriginal, because it's something that they can stand for. It's, you know what I mean? So everybody is different.
And you mentioned as well that besides those two terms, there was another term that you personally is your term of preference. Can you talk a little bit about that?
When obviously it wasn't always like that. So obviously growing up, I'm Aboriginal, or I'm Indigenous and stuff like that. But once I got connected more with culture and searched for what I think I was looking for, I'll present myself as I'm a Dadik, Wiradjuri, Yuan, Gamilaroi man, and that's 4 separate tribes, from South Coast up to Walgett, and you know what I mean. That's obviously 2 from my father's side and then 2 from my mother's side. So I represent that. That's who I am. That's how I introduce myself now.
Yeah, word. And then when you talk about, experiencing racism as a young kid, and how it sort of changed a bit over time, can you talk about what sort of effects or impacts did that have on you as a young kid? And has that carried through into adulthood or not so much?
So it did affect me. I didn't realise at the time how much it affected me. But as I grew older, that's when I was like, hang on, like this isn't right. You know what I mean? Like, so I did get to a point where I would turn around and I would be that black guy that you think I am, and I'll attack you for it. But now, as an adult, I see same way as dealing with the police. I'm going to beat them at their own game. They're going to expect me to carry on, flip out, do this, do that. No, I'm going to be nice to you, right? But if you're going to be a cunt to me, no, I may be a cunt to you. You know what I mean? So sorry about the language, but that's how I am now. You know.
While you're experiencing, this part in your childhood, did you also end up getting involved in, some of the street shit? Because obviously through your music, the theme of street shit carries all the way through.
Yeah. There was a lot of, don't want to incriminate myself, but there was a lot of not right behaviour, some would say. But for me, it was more of survival. My parents did what they could. They weren't the richest. We weren't the richest family, but they did what they could. But unfortunately, it wasn't enough for me. And when I say that, I mean I didn't feel right from the age of maybe 14. I didn't feel right that my parents were spending their money on me. So it was, I got to get mine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you would say that around the age of 14, 15-ish is when you started to dabble in the street shit.
Yeah.
And, obviously without saying too much, can you talk about some of the things that you were getting involved in at that early age?
Obviously it started with a bit of borrowing from shops, and then it went on to people donating their phones and stuff like that. But I was lucky that I wouldn't. So it started with a little bit of shop stuff, then on the street people stuff, and then went into business, retail. But then luckily for me, my partner fell pregnant with my first son. So that really changed me for the better, man, big time.
Yeah, right. And then so at what age did you find out that you were having...
Shit, maybe... How old is he now? Would have been maybe 20, 23, 24. So I kind of, when I hit 18, I did step back a bit from all that street shit. Only because I knew I'm 18 now. If I get done, I'm going big boys. And unfortunately for me, every single one of my brothers, my father, cousins, they've all done jail. So I looked at that as a motivation to keep me out. You know what I mean? So then once 23, 24 come around, it was, baby on the way, and I got a job and haven't stopped fucking working since, man.
Yeah, right. So basically, like at around 14, 15, you started dabbling in the street shit. Then up until 18, you kind of thought, all right, if I don't slow the fuck down, I go to the big boy's house. And then a few years later, you've had a kid, and that's pretty much set you straight.
Big time, bro. Like, I don't want to, it gets used a lot, but I know if I kept going the way I was going, people are probably going to watch and go, everyone says that, but on the big man, if I kept going the way I was going, I'd end up dead or in jail. You know what I mean? Like, I was doing some dumb shit. Like, there's times I was getting fucking a man would happily donate his phone and wallet, and then 20 minutes later, he's come back with 3 or 4 carloads of men. I'm only fucking 15. I'm fucking riding around on a push bike, you know what I mean? And yeah, so if it could have been a lot worse for me, man.
Now, when you talk about family members of yours going to jail, how old? Like, first of all, which of your family's members went to jail, and like, how old were you when that was happening? Is this all pretty much through your childhood?
Yeah, so the first one I remember was my father. I still remember going and seeing him at, like, I don't recall the date he was locked up or when he was in the cop shop or anything like that, but I do have memories going to visit him at Long Bay. And to be honest, that didn't even come back to me until I went to visit my brother at Long Bay. Many, many years later, I'm an adult, I go to visit my brother, and I'm like, this place looks fucking familiar. And then that's when I started having memories of, hang on, we used to sit there, there used to be this there. I remember that painting on the wall, you know what I mean? And that's when, so the earliest days are probably maybe 7 or 6.
Yeah, right. And when you look back at it now, what sort of impact did it have on you, your father, and your brother both going to jail?
Yeah, so with my father, I couldn't really say what sort of impact it had, as I was so young. But seeing my brothers go in and out, that, like I said, man, that was a motivation for me. Not only with the jails in and out, but also the drug abuse and everything else surrounding the way that I grew up. It was fuel for me to try and get away from that street shit and do better. I could never get there, but the spark was there. You know what I mean? And then once the partner fell pregnant, that just went bang, and I was good. So there was my eldest brother when he first went. That was more of a kick in the face. Like I'd lay at home and read letters from him and cry. I'm a fucking 20 year. I was a 20-year-old man at the time, and I'd sit there and fucking cry because he was. And it hurts saying it now. Like, he was my best mate. You know what I mean? And to see what he was and what he had to where he is now, it's a big heartbreak, and that's because of jail. You know. So he was like me. He wasn't for the drugs. It was about money. You know what I mean? And that's how he always was. Went to jail the first time, come out, it was okay. Then the second whack he done, that's when it got the better of him, and he ended up on the shit and got out, and you know what I mean? Now it's fucked. It's fucked, bro.
Sorry to hear, man.
It is what it is, bro. You know, look, you got to, Mike Tyson said it, you got to take the good days with the bad days. It's all life. If you don't have fucking shit days and shit moments, you're not doing life, So
In Layla Park, was the gangs thing a big thing? I do think I read somewhere or seen somewhere that you had a bit of a run in graffiti before the music thing.
Yeah. So even with the graffiti, like the gang stuff, there was one crew there. There was obviously a big family, Islander family, and they had their gang. We just had our family, so it was kind of like just family and family. We had a few run-ins with them and stuff like that, but it wasn't to the extent where let's go meet up at the park and fucking have an all-in brawl or something like that. It was more of a, if we seen you, then it was a one-on-one, and it was fair goes, you know what I mean? But now, these days, man, it's, if it's not filmed and put on fucking social media, it's not drill. It didn't happen, you know what I mean? It's ridiculous.
In regards to the graffiti stuff, how deep into that did you get?
I got pretty deep in it, man. So obviously when I started so my older brother, he was into it first with a couple of his mates from Layla Park, and then that, like, I always loved art, like water painting, oil painting and stuff like that. But then he started getting into that with his mates, and then I started getting into it with my mate, and then my mate kind of just stepped back from it, and then I met some new mates and kept going with it, and obviously doing tracksides, panels, tunnels, all that sort of stuff. But then I met a bloke named Fuse, and a bloke named JC, which actually turns out JC actually went to school with my mother way back. So these boys were older than me, and then they showed me that you don't have to go do panels. You can get a legal wall. You can get paid to paint. You know what I mean? So then I started kicking it with them more, and they were inviting me. Like I was meeting some big names like Pecky, Unique, like all the older heads, you know. And I started doing legals with them and started getting paid, and I started getting my own walls. And so in Layla Park, there was, from a young age, we were always advocating to get a skate park. They never gave us one. So our next thing was painting. So then I built relationships with shop owners and stuff like that. And I've said, there was one guy, he owned a fruit shop. I said, I'm happy to paint the front of your thing free of charge if you let me paint the back of it regularly, you know. He was like, yep, no worries. And it was much easier for me because my grandparents were well known in that area, still are to this day. So they had the good rapport with everyone, you know. Like, unfortunately, my brothers were more of the hooligans, so they had the name of, oh, there's so and so, stay away from them. You know what I mean? Where I tried to keep my stuff dark, my stuff stayed low, and so like I said, you respect me, I'm going to respect you. You know. So then that's how all that legal wars come about. I landed a couple of legal wars in Layla Park, and I've still got them now. I've still got 2 of them now. But then we did start having threats from the council because for some reason a couple of blokes thought it was a community wall. And one of these walls were a community wall. Now me, when I left Layla Park, I left the wall in particular to JC, the bloke that got me into legals. And obviously he knew he could paint it whenever he wants. If someone wanted to paint it, take it up with him. But then other randoms started turning up and painting it on their own. So then I went back and I tried to reach out to these people, but none of them wanted to borrow it. So I went to that shop owner and I said, hey, we don't want the wall no more. You see anyone painting it, you stop them. He said, yep, sweet, done, no worries. I rolled it, left it, but still got other walls. So every now and then, I'm a youth worker now, so every now and then I'll take some kids down there, we'll paint the wall, and you know what I mean? So I'm still engaged in it, not as heavily as I was, but more of just more of a tool for outlet for young kids now. So,
but before all this legal wall stuff, you mentioned you were hitting panels, like you were hitting trains.
Yeah, it was more. We weren't hitting yards when I was doing it. We were pulling red lights. You'd have to go with a couple of boys. You've only got a certain amount of time. You know what I mean? So that was more of it. Me, I did like the adrenaline, but I was more of I want to take my time. You know, I want to be able to do a little bit, walk 20 metres away, have a look, come back, go again. You know what I mean? So, but when it comes to the panels, yeah, it was just red light stuff.
Amongst all this stuff, at what age did you become engaged with hip-hop music as a fan? And then at what age did you decide to pick up a pen and start trying to write your own shit? And how did all that come about?
So when the first time I wrote a rap, I wasn't even a fan of hip-hop. I wasn't even a fan of rap. I was straight up Jackson 5, straight up Jackson 5, fucking Backstreet Boys, just young, you know what I mean? Just into all that. Whatever was going good at the time, you know, I wasn't really into the rap, but my brother was more into it. He was a DJ and doing all that stuff, but then my brother and my sister invited me to a workshop. I think I was, maybe 13. There was a workshop being held at Mount Druitt in Tregear at the community centre. So I went down there when I was about 13 and met the people that were running it, they were an Aboriginal group. They went by the name of Local Knowledge. So they pretty much helped me write my first rap. Didn't know what the fuck I was doing, but I done it, and then I still wasn't really into it. I was still didn't care for music or anything like that. But then I started dealing with some of my own demons, battling my own demons, and I didn't like asking for help. I didn't, as a man, I was taught you don't ask for help, you deal with it. You know what I mean? And but it was eating me. All the shit that I was dealing with was eating me. And then I came across DMX, and I heard him talk his pain, and I could hear the pain in his voice, but he made it sound fucking good, So that's when I started writing. Now, not many people would know, but when I first started rapping, I had the American accent because that's all I knew. That's all I heard in my household because of my brother. That's all you seen on TV. That's all you heard on the radio. You know what I mean? So when I started, I had the American accent, and then I think the first person I heard with the Australian accent was By SB, and that was what song was that? I think it was Hursty. It's all good out in Hursty. So I heard that one. And mind you, like when I first started rapping, I didn't go hard. I was on, I was off, I was on. It was more of an outlet for me to express, And then and then I heard him and I thought, he sounds half decent with the most Aussiest accent you could fucking hear, right? I thought, if he can pull it off, I can pull it off, right? So that's when I started doing the Australian accent, and it's just been on from there.
Yeah, right. And then so when you first heard that Bias B joint, were you up? Because obviously he's from Melbourne. Were you up on Sydney rap at that point at all?
I was. However, with the Sydney rap, there was when I was started, there was only a handful. So there was the only other person that I knew with the Aussie accent was Forte. But the other boys that used to do it in the Blacktown area, they all had their American accents. So don't get me wrong, they made dope music. You know what I mean? I thought it was dope. And then but yeah, when it comes to actual Aussie slang within rap, there wasn't much of it. So
And then so after you've heard, Bias B, and you've started to rap with the Aussie accent, how did things progress for you musically from there?
pretty fucking good, man. I would say. Let me. Since we were talking about graffiti, so the first time I heard that Hursty track from Bias B, I was actually on my way to Crocker's Paint to buy a shitload of paint with 2 carloads of boys, and that's when I heard it, and then that made me fall in love with it more because he's talking about painting as well. You know what I mean? So, but progression-wise, once I heard him, then I started. Who do I hear next? Then I heard Bliss and Esso a fair bit because my brother loved Bliss and Esso. And then I heard a little bit of Hijack and Torture, but then I heard Phrase. Now, I mentioned Phrase's name. Probably 90% of people that watch this are going to go, who? To me, he, hands down, he's the best artist, MC, in Australia. Full stop. That's in my book, you know what I mean? So speaking of him too, I actually met him in person through Daniel Merriweather. I'm not sure if you've heard of that man. He done a lot of singing. He actually lives in the United States now. So when I started getting more into the hip hop, I used to go and I was too young to get into. There's a place in Sydney called the Gaelic Club. Now that was every week, notorious for Australian hip hop gigs. Every week, I was too young to get in. So I'd go and I'd hang out the back because there was no backstage. There was just a roller door, then there was a back street. I'd hang out there and just wait for him to come out and talk to him and spit rhymes to him. And Daniel Merriweather, Fraser was actually on stage, and I was talking to Daniel Merriweather and I was telling him, I'm a rapper too, this and that. And he asked me to spit for him, so I spat for him. I'm only young as fuck. He goes, you're coming to Melbourne. We'll fly back tomorrow. I'm not fucking going nowhere with you, mate. You know what I mean? And then Fraser come out, and then he told me to spit again for Fraser, and Fraser was on the same page. You got to come to Melbourne, blah, 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 and that's what kind of pushed me more to do it. Because not only was I expressing my feelings and shit that was eating me up, but these fellas are feeling it. Now, especially Fraser, because he was one of the men that inspired me. You know what I mean?
What is it about him as an artist that makes you say he's the best Australian rap artist all time?
Me personally, he was, back then when I listened to his shit, he was relevant, but I can still listen to his shit today and it's still relevant for me. You know what I mean? He helped me through some dark fucking times, man, just with his music, and he will never know because I haven't seen him since that night at the Gaelic Club, you know what I mean? So I have reached out and tried to reach out to him and got in contact with, I don't know if you remember, Weapon X. Got in contact with him and he said the same thing. Nah, Fraser's gone missing. He doesn't do music. No one's heard from him. So, but yeah, he was more of an inspiration and an influence on me. So that's why I put him in one of my. He's in my top 5, if not the best in Oz. So,
Amongst all these names, Hilltop Hoods are, debatably, if not debatably, the biggest name in Australian hip hop. Did you listen to much of their stuff at any point in time, or were you too detached?
No, obviously Nosebleed Section. Everyone fucking listened to that one. But there was, I don't know, if you can't catch my attention within your first verse, I'm not going to fuck with the rest of it. You know what I mean? That's just who I am. I couldn't, they were more, because I was street and shit like that, they were more commercial. The stuff that I heard was more commercial and it wasn't for me personally, you know what I mean? Like, no knock on their hustle. Like, they've been doing big things, they've done big things with the scene and stuff like that. But for me personally, I wasn't really a big fan. So
now, on the other end of the spectrum, I think you'd have to say that they're Sydney legends, Sydney Searchers.
big time.
Now, for you, how much of an impact did Sydney Searchers have for you, and when did you catch on, etc.?
I would have started putting my stuff out around the same time they were. Me personally, Sydney Searcher days were, for me, that was the good era. You know what I mean? That was more underground and shit like that. So I loved it, especially Sky, man. You can't knock Sky. There ain't a female within Australia that could keep up with that girl. And not only as a rapper, but look, she's an artist. She's an MC. She can create. Like, she has her mind. Like, I had the opportunity to sit in the studio with her a couple of times, and her mind it works different. You know what I mean? Like, she's writing fucking. She's behind a lot of massive tracks from other artists now because she was ghostwriting. You know what I mean? People don't know this, but she ghostwrit a lot of stuff for labels, for the commercial artists. You know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah.
I don't suppose that you can say some of the artists that she...
I can't say the artist, but the label is pretty well known. So, yeah.
Yeah, wow. And you actually... you had a joint with her, Forte. I think there was a few others on that
Real
song.
Gutter Music, the hidden track for her album.
Yeah. So how did... I mean, on the topic of Sky High, how did that song come about?
So my brother, he used to talk to her a lot. They were house on fire, them two. So then I met her through him, and one day she's invited me down to the studio and went down there. It was just her and a partner in there, and she just like, I feel like we should make a song. I was like, fuck, I'm keen, look, you're a dope artist, I'm keen. Then we did the first track we done, it was called Fake. It was just me and her. And then that's when she started talking about a potential album and stuff like that. And then a few years passed by, and she hit me up. She just threw me the beat, didn't tell me anything, just said, here's the beat, the hook's on it, do what you do, you know. And next thing you know, it was fucking a hidden track on the album. I didn't even know that. And everyone else was on it. I was like, all right, sweet, you know. And it, I must say, fucking goes pretty good.
And at that point, did you already have a relationship with Forte?
Yeah. So Forts, I met Forte through my brother. And then Forte, he kind of hit it off with my mum and dad. So Forte's much older than me, man. You know what I mean? Well, I wouldn't say much older, but he's older than me. So he hit it off with mum and dad, and so to this day, like I've known Fort for many years. He's known me for many years. But to this day, if I'm in a room with someone and they talk bad on Forts or talk down on Forts, I still got to turn around and go, I can't talk on that because he's always showed love to my parents. They were tight. He's always showed love to me. You know what I mean? Away from this music shit, he's a fucking good dude. It's just how it is. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, I think the first time I met Forte was when I did an interview. We did an interview, I think it would have been like maybe 2016, I think it was. And at that point, I didn't know as much about him as I do now. When I look at what he's done, what he's doing, and potentially what he could do, he to me is like one of the godfathers of Sydney rap.
Speaking of that, I actually call him Father Chris Riley. You know, he's one of the older fellas in the scene, and don't get me wrong, I terrorise him. I terrorise the shit out of him. I always fucking, that's just me. I'm a pest, right? So I terrorise the shit out of him. If he's got a few drinks in him, he gives it back. If not, he shrugs it off because he knows what I'm like, you know. But yeah, he's Father Chris Riley. Forts, that's you, man. Father Chris Riley. So.
And in your opinion, how do you feel about the impact that he's had on, you know, Australian rap, street rap, and Sydney rap in general?
He has played a big part. So if you've ever heard my song "Don't," I basically stated in there when I was coming up, when I was doing my thing. There was Forte, there was fucking Sydney Searchers, all that stuff. So he had a big impact on the scene. I got to say, you know, I listen to songs now by him, and I hear like every rapper recycles a bar or two, you know, but I always hear a line in one of his new songs that was in one of his songs back in fucking 2000. You know what I mean? And fans are loving it. They don't know, you know what I mean? But he's yeah. So that's gives you an idea of how long I've known the man for, you know.
I think 2008, you had a mixtape that dropped.
I think
Westline.
Westline, yep. That wasn't even meant to be a mixtape, bro. That was so at that point, I was just writing raps, you know, writing music, and then my brother actually put it together as a mixtape, took it into Westline Art Music, Lopez Records, and I went out the door like hot chips, man. Like I had to take more back there the next day, and mind you, I'm dropping 30, 40 copies off, and that's when it was like, all right, people are listening, you know. So it was, but in saying that, I never stayed consistent. I wasn't 100% devoted to, hey, I want to make this a career. You know what I mean? Because I done it for expression. So if I was helping another kid going through the same shit, that's my payment. That's my career, you know? So there wasn't a lot of consistency. So I think I've only dropped that one. Me personally, I chose to, it's for free, have it. But obviously money got made on it. And then my second one, after that, it was still on and off, just music here and there. And then my second one would have been a few years back now, Trial and Retribution. Even that one, I didn't ask for any payment from that. I just put it out there for people. But then where it went up through, fuck, I can't even remember who I put it up through, but they were charging money for it. So people were paying for it, and here I am thinking, what the fuck? You know what I mean? I'm trying to give my music away here, but we got companies fucking making money off it. Like, so I was kind of in and out because it wasn't about the money and the fame for me. You know what I mean? It was about expressing myself and helping others at the same time. And that's how it's always been. Like,
So your second mixtape was also free, but the whole time, whoever was distributing it, they were charging for it, but then none of the royalties were going back to you.
no. But the thing about it is when it was put up, there wasn't a cost on it. They didn't say it's this much. So people were paying $10. People were paying $20. Some bloke even hit me up and said he paid $40. I'm like, bro, you should have just paid 1 cent. Like, because I didn't get the money. I didn't want the money. They're taking it, just pay 1 cent and you'll get it. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, people didn't know and I didn't know until it was fucking halfway through. And so...
Yeah, right. So you find out halfway through this is happening, and then once you find out, did you contact the people and say, hey, what's going on? Or did you just let it slide? Or what happened?
I'll be honest, bro, I just let it go. From that point, I didn't put anything else on that platform, just for the simple fact that they're charging money. I could have been a dickhead and chase them. I want me fucking money, you know what I mean? But that wouldn't have sat right with me. Because like I said, I gave it away. You're making money on it. Well, that's karma for you. I'm not going to chase you and get the money for myself, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not built like that.
And so were those two mixtapes the only two mixtapes that you put out?
Yeah.
2011, you had a single on Hustle Hard TV, Still Won't Take Me.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, was that your first single on YouTube?
I think that would have been my first video clip though, on YouTube, but not first release. No.
Okay, so if that was your first clip on YouTube, then that, I guess, was the first time you worked with Hustle Hard TV?
Yep.
Okay, so, I mean, Gunster, again, another guy who, in my opinion, you know, is in the conversations with like a Forte and, you know, Sydney Search is like another OG that's done a lot for the scene. How did you guys, develop a rapport, and how did that single come about?
So that came about with so I already had that track sitting there for maybe 12 months, never released, and then I hit Forte up. I'm like, cuz who's doing your clips? I need a clip done, you know. He's like, oh, I hit this fella up, which was Gunster. So I hit him up and he gave me his price, and at that point I was, as I said, I wasn't chasing a career or money or anything like that. So when he gave me the price, I was like, don't bother. Like, I'm not gonna invest so much money into something that I'm not gonna chase as a living. You know what I mean? So I was like, sweet as, cuz, and we left it at that. But then a few days later, he hit me up. He's like, bro, he goes, I was listening to some of his stuff. He goes, I want to do it for free. So I was like, fuck, you want to do it for free? We'll do it, you know. So that's how that happened. And I met Gunster, and good bloke, you know what I mean, top bloke. And like you said, he did a lot for the scene that these new rappers wouldn't even know. You know what I mean? Like, some of these rappers now that came up through Hustle Hard, they need to understand that if it wasn't for Hustle Hard, if it wasn't for Nter, if it wasn't for a few others, then they wouldn't be popping as they are. You know what I mean? Like, this platform was built for you. Don't run around saying that you fucking done this on your own. You know what I mean? So Gunster had a massive impact. Like, he was showing the streets. You know what I mean? He was putting the streets into a clip and putting it out there for other people to see. So.
And did you end up having more singles on Hustle Hard TV, or was it just that one?
No, I had that one, and then I think I'd done a one take. And then we done a cypher. Mic check. That was me, Gravy, Gunster, ChillinIt, and neary on the decks. So we done the Still Won't Take Me, the Warning, the One Take, the mic'd up cipher, and then I also done a few joint collaborations with other artists that went out through Hustle Hard.
In the following year, 2013, you were actually in a movie, Around the Block, and it had what's her name, Christina Ricci, which is the chick from Casper the Friendly Ghost.
Yep.
Now, tell us a little bit about that, because I didn't know that you were, until we did the research, I had no idea that you were doing the acting thing.
So my family, my whole family has been in and out of the TV industry. So we're kind of well known within casting agencies and stuff like that. So funny story about that is I went down for the audition, and the lady that actually wrote the movie, she was there on the auditions. Her name's Sarah Spillane. She actually done drama school with my sister. So when I've mentioned my name, she's like, "Oh my God, blah blah, where's your sister?" I said, "Oh, she's out in the waiting room, So she's come out, said hello, and from that point on, I had the role. She even married two roles together for my sister to jump in it as well. So it was pretty fun. That actually had Ruby Rose in that one as well, and a few more Australian actors, well known.
So your sister was in the same movie as well?
Yeah, she only got a short dialogue screen time there, but yeah, they made it happen just because she went to school with her and done all that.
So were you doing like acting school and stuff like that, and then this was your first big role, or this sort of came out of nowhere, or why'd they pick you? I'm
going to be honest, I think, obviously, I'm a good looking bloke, suit the role, but I think it's more of, because as I said, my family's well known within the industry, and we're highly respected. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I feel that, yeah, I'm good at what I do, but also because of how my family hold themselves professionally, and also the writer and the director knowing my sister and the last name, you know what I mean? So.
And then, like, I've only seen the trailer. I've yet to see the movie, but what I gathered from there is, like, correct me if I'm wrong, the storyline is there's something to do with, like, revenge and, a bit of police brutality and that sort of thing. Can you detail what the movie's actually about?
So, yeah, it's about, so there's actually two storylines in it. The one that I'm more based around is the revenge kind of thing. So my Coey in the movie, his father and his co-offender both got done. The co-offender rolled on his dad. His dad got all this time while the other guy started living the high life, getting paid for it. So we go and take revenge for old mate's father and stuff like that.
Yeah, right. And then like, in regards to doing music as opposed to doing acting, like, how different is the process?
Big difference, man. Big difference. So with acting, it's kind of hurry up and wait. So basically what I mean is I would have a scene at 6 p.m. at night, a 10-minute run through, but I've got to be there at 6 a.m. So then you're just sitting around waiting, you know what I mean? So it's just, hurry up and wait. It is fun. You have a good laugh with whoever you're on set with and stuff, So, but me personally, I'd rather music because it just touches on emotions and expression, and you know what I mean. So.
Now, in regards to, I guess, the business side of doing a movie, when I've seen interviews of rappers in America, they say that the checks in Hollywood are much nicer than the music checks.
They are, man.
Yeah?
Yeah, big time. Well, the good thing about that one is, so when we were filming that movie, I was actually filming a short film and a TV series at the same time. So I was running 3 different things, and at that time, I wasn't too fussed on money. I enjoyed doing what I do, you know. But then my manager, she hit me up because they started coming directly to me because of my family's name is well known. So then I got my manager involved because they were all there, and it's like, fuck, how do I work? How do I sort it out? So she got involved, and she's told me, look, you're obviously at high demand right now. She goes, this is what they're paying, but this is what we're going to ask for. Go ahead, do you, you know. So just for that one around the block, that one alone, I was about 900 a day, I think it was. So it was, yeah. And that's to sit there and do nothing, drink coffee and fucking wait, you know. So, but yeah, the checks are a lot nicer.
And then for how many days were you on set?
So that one, I think it was about a week on that one, but it wasn't day after day consistency. It was like 2 days this week, 1 day next week. But obviously once the job's done, because it wasn't such a long job for me, once the job was done, the check was there and, you know. So obviously if it was longer, then we'd go, hey, we need something up front, finish off later, you know. So
you mentioned that, you were also tied in or involved in like a couple of other things to do with acting. And 2014, I'm wondering if this was one of those things. 2014, you played the character Jared on Jonah from Tonga, which was a super, super big, popular show. And it had, what's his name, Chris Lilly.
Yeah.
Has that come directly off the back of doing the movie Around the Block? How did that come together?
So with the acting stuff, there's obviously your normal casting agents that just go to the normal actors, but then there's also documentary casting agents which go worldwide. So they've gone all over Australia looking for someone to play Jared. And as I said before, my family's name and us being well known within the industry, it came to a casting agent, Anushka. She, instead of putting it out for everybody, she contacted me. Said, hey, this is you. I've read the script. This is you, blah, blah, blah. She's, it's with Chris Lilly. It's mad. And at that time, I didn't know Chris Lilly as Chris Lilly. I knew Jonah from Tonga, Jamai, all that stuff, but didn't know his actual name. And I'm thinking, she's a bit excited. Should I be excited? That's when I Googled it, and I was like, oh, it's this bloke. I was like, I hope it's Jonah from Tonga, and for sure it was, So, but yeah, it kind of, I think it did fall straight off the back of that Around the Block, but it wasn't because of Around the Block. You know what I mean?
With Jonah from Tonga, obviously, like, that's a series. So you featured as the character Jared, like, across several episodes?
Yeah. Yep. So that was, there was a long process. At that time, I didn't know anyone in Melbourne, So when I was down, the whole time I was down there, so I stayed there for the whole thing, the whole stay, over the whole 7 episodes. But as I said, it wasn't consistent every day. You know what I mean? It was a couple of days here, a couple of days there, but it was good. They had me up in I think it was the Ridges, nice big room up top, and felt like a fucking superstar, mate. It was good.
And then, so, like, when you're comparing the process between, acting in a movie versus in a series, which do you prefer and why?
I think they're both the same, man. But with Jonah from Tonga, it was more of a laugh. Like, away from the camera, like just with the crew and the cast and stuff like that. That was more of a laugh for me. It was a pretty nice experience. But in saying that, the movie side of things, I got to meet Christina Ricci, got to meet Ruby Rose, all that sort of stuff. So it was each run had its perks, and obviously I'm grateful for both. If I had to choose which one I'd rather do, I don't know. I couldn't answer.
when you did Jared, the character, for people who haven't seen it, can you describe, who that character was?
So Jared, he is the head honcho. He's the Trump of the brothers, the black fellas in juvie. He kind of ran the show and always had his falling outs with Jonah. And actually, if you have a look at that, if you have a close look, my character. So the reason I say I'm the Trump is because my character is the only character within that whole show in the juvie system that has brand shoes. They went and bought me a pair of TNs for it. Everyone else was wearing Dunlop volleys, you know what I mean? So if that doesn't say I'm the Trump, I don't know what does,
And then, so I think not long after, Jonah from Tonga has, I think, wrapped up or done however many series or whatnot, at some point, Netflix took it down.
For blackface, yeah.
Yeah, so, when that happened, what's your take on that, and how did you feel about it when that happened?
I understand where they're coming from, just with all the racial stuff that was going on at the time. But I don't feel... I don't know, I didn't mind it. I liked it, you know what I mean? It was like if you hung around certain islanders or anything like that, then you understand of what he's doing, you know what I mean? So it's like me personally, I didn't have a problem with it, but in saying that, I also understand where Netflix was coming from. Kind of a bit of a fuck you to Netflix because I was still getting royalties, like right up until it got taken off air. So fuck Netflix.
And then so when it's happened and they've taken it down, did that come as complete shock to you, or is that the blackface thing something that was discussed on set while the filming was going on? And
No, it was never really discussed on set. To be honest, because it was so long ago that we were filming, when I found out, like I didn't find out that it was off Netflix until maybe a month or two later. You know what I mean? Because still to this day, people are like, hey, he was in Jonah, you know what I mean? And my go-to was, yeah, it's on Netflix, go watch it, you know what I mean? But now, it's like, the last time I said it, I was like, no, it's not on Netflix anymore, it got taken down, So it was a little bit of a shock, but not really, because it was so long ago.
now, out of interest, when you talk about, when they've taken it down, that cuts off the supply royalties that come to you from being in that. So is that, when you did that, is that a situation where they pay you to shoot it and then on top of that, you get royalties?
Yeah. So they put contracts out, and instead of getting your tax return, they just pay royalties over the time that it gets watched and shit like that. And it was good, it wasn't fucking top dollar, but every couple of months I'd get 1600 in the mail, so it was a little something. Still spending Jonah money, you know what I mean?
And then, so if you compare the checks that you got overall from the Jonah from Tonga series, including the royalties, versus the check that you got for the movie Around the Block, which do you think paid better?
Long term, Jonah. Long term, Jonah did, man. 100%.
Because of the royalties from Netflix? Because
of the royalties, yeah. So I had that flat rate. It wasn't... I think it was about $500 or $600 a day while I was down there. Obviously, flights, accommodation, food allowance, all that stuff put in. But then, like I said, look, one month I'd get $1,200, and then 2 months later I'd get $1,800 or $1,600. You know what I mean? It varied, but yeah, overall, long term financially, Jonah from Tonga was the one.
And then, so how long were the Netflix checks coming through for before it dried up?
Man, they came through for a while, eh? Like, I think the last one I got probably, maybe three or 4 months ago. That was probably the best contract I ever signed, eh? It was fucking good.
So we talking like what, a year, 2 years?
fuck it, longer. Like they just kept coming and coming. You know, there was times where it was $600 check, or you know what I mean. But still, it was that little Easter egg on the side that, and the good thing about it always came at a time of need. You know, if someone needed help with bills, or I was a little bit short on rent this fortnight, you know what I mean? Just, that was bang, it was there. I was like, fucking sweet. So it was good.
Oh, wow, that's killer. And then so, you know, off the back of this, did you do more movie stuff, TV stuff? If not, why not? Are you planning to do any of that in the future?
Yeah, I did. Actually, no, that was before then. I'd done a short film just before then, but afterwards it was kind of, apart from Jonah, it was kind of, I knocked back a couple of roles because it was the stereotype blackfella criminal, you know what I mean, all that stuff, and I got, I don't know, there's more to me than that, you know. So there's got to be a limit that some people have where they stand up and go, no, no more, you know. So it was always, don't get me wrong, money's good, but I can do more than just play the criminal, you know.
And so was that the last round of acting that you've done?
Last one was The Convict, a movie called The Convict. It's got George Basher and all that in there. So he actually writ it. That would have been the last one. That one, but we done free of charge. Didn't charge anything for that, only because two of my elderly uncles were in it. It's actually going off now on TikTok and all that. Everyone's screen recording it, putting it on, you know. But that one, I got a phone call of Uncle Richard Green, and he's like, Neff, you know, where you at? Where's the mob? So I was just kicking back. He's like, we've got a big fight scene down here at Parramatta Jail. He goes, there's only 3 blackfellas. He goes, we're meant to be having a big fight scene with Lebos and Aboriginals. There's only 3 blackfellas. I said, never mind, I'm coming. Rounded the cousins up and went down there. So everyone that's seen there was 80% of them just mob, you know what I mean?
And so did you have a main role in that movie, or?
No, that was just more of an extra. Just, I needed help. You know, I needed more blackfellas in there, so I went down.
In 2015, now you've dropped Real Talk Part 3. And I think that featured Jay Druitt. 2016, you've dropped the Fuckboy remix, and I think that had Luxury and like a few other features on it.
Yeah, there was Luxury, Merc Mason, Big Red Cap, Buns, Quick Cav.
Now the same year, so 2016, you've also dropped Don't Worry About It. That one's featuring Luxury and Nter.
Fuck, I totally forgot about that.
2017, you've dropped Get the Message, and that one had Sesk, Luxury, and Sam on it.
Sam.
And 2018, you've dropped Trenches, and that had Luxury and Gravy Baby on it.
Gravy Baby.
Now, so from 2015 to 2018, that's like a 4 year period. Because you've got those features in there with Luxury and Nter, I'm going to assume that somewhere in there is where the whole Trap Runners thing happened for you.
Yeah, somewhere around there would have been, yeah. So yeah, I was talking on and off with Nter before all that stuff happened anyway, you know. But yeah, it would have been probably around that time. Because he actually rang me and he asked me about Lux. He'd never met Lux and never spoken to him, you know. And I said, but at the end of the day, I said, Lux is the man you want in your corner, you know what I mean? He's I don't want to say loyal because that's the word we use for dogs, you know what I mean? But he's a genuine bloke. If you need him, he's there, you know what I mean? Like, if anything happened to me today, I know I can count on him to look after my family, you know what I mean? So... And then, yeah, that's when we all started. I introduced them and yeah, just started linking on then. So,
and then, so when Trap Runners has originally become a thing, I guess a musical crew, because to my understanding, Trap Runners in the beginning wasn't like a hip-hop thing.
No. It was just the boys, you know, from obviously the Melbourne boys and that. And then it started... We started realising, I started realising that when we're on stage as a collective, the crowd was going mental. So, and we just snowballed from that, you know what I mean?
So basically, you guys had been doing stuff together, but then somewhere in that, 2015 or to 2018 period, Trap Runners has become an official thing as far as a hip hop crew, and you were, I guess, in the original creation of that group.
I wouldn't say original creation. See, the funny thing about it, there was never the sit down talk and all right, boys, we're a crew. This is what we're gonna do. It was more of a, if I had a song, I'm like, I want you and you on it, or if he had a song, I'm jumping on it. You know what I mean? It was, we never. If you have a look, there is not one track where every one of us are on. You know what I mean? There's like a couple on that one, but so it wasn't. Yeah, I think that would have been. We would have succeeded a lot more if we sat down and had that talk. Boys, this is what we're gonna do. Blah blah blah. You know what I mean? And obviously, it didn't happen. There's a few unwanted entities, and you know what I mean. So yeah.
And so, why do you think that talk, to plan out some sort of, I guess, some sort of roadmap to what you wanted to do with music, why do you think that talk never happened? Just because it was just all too new, or?
Well, because I'm not going to sit here and fucking, and sugarcoat some shit. Ego's got in the way. Some of the boys felt like, why do a show together and all make money when I can do the show and I can get the money? You know what I mean? There wasn't, there was just too many egos. Everyone thought they were better than each other, and where me, bro, just straight up, I just wanted to make music. I wanted to fucking travel. I wanted to perform, you know what I mean? Like, there's countless times where I fucking put money up and haven't wanted anything back. Like, I was just happy to be there to see one of the boys succeed. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
And now, for the record, and for those who don't know, tell us exactly who's in Trap Runners as far as the rappers go.
To my knowledge, there was Lux, Nter, Mercs, and Jagada.
And obviously yourself.
And me.
Now, when you mentioned Jagada, I noticed that he had a lot of tracks with the Trap Runner stamp on them at the front of the videos. And then that kind of just stopped. And then there was speculations that you guys had a falling out for various different reasons. Can you touch on what happened with Jagada and Trap Runners?
To my knowledge, bro, like I obviously I weren't there. I don't know 100%, but to my knowledge, there was a lot of talking out of school. Bit of jealousy, and like I said, I wasn't there, so I don't know. But going from what I'm hearing, what I heard, there was some jealousy and a bit of talking out of school. So, like me as a man, morally, I'm built different. You know what I mean? If you're going to sit here and run someone down to me, then I know that you're going to be out there running me down to something. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, yeah. So, and I don't want to put myself in that.
Now, do you think that we will see a Trap Runners show anytime in the near future?
If Merc stops getting fucking locked up. Nah, in the near future, I don't think so, man. On my end, there's no hate, there's no nothing like that, no love lost, no love gained. But if the boys wanted to reach out and fucking and sort something out, probably I'd be open to it, but I couldn't give you 100%.
So is the situation between you guys now, obviously I'm going to assume that there's no beef, but there's a bit of, like, you don't communicate as much, you guys aren't as collaborative as you were at one point? So,
first and foremost, Lux is my brother. I talk to him on a daily. I haven't spoken to Nter in a while. We some personal stuff there. Merksy. I tried to link with him last time I was down Melbourne, but he was fucking ended up getting locked up again. So I haven't spoken to him in a little bit, and I haven't spoke to Jagata. I'll be honest, bro. I've probably only in the whole trap runner situation shit. I probably spoke to Jagata maybe 2 or 3 times. Like, so I don't really know Jagata. You know what I mean?
2019. You had a track with ChillinIt called Verses.
Yep.
And now, rumor has it that the way that song came about, and you can, correct me where I'm wrong here, but apparently the way that song came about is ChillinIt had a joint with Turquoise Prince called Concuss.
Yep.
And that was on Body Bag Media. Now, apparently there was a line in there where people were saying that he dissed you.
I'm going to be honest, bro. I never really listened to Chill. Only for the simple fact that there was too much cadence and flow bitten from Alex. But then, I started getting phone calls. Hey, bro, you and ChillinIt, sweet. In my book, he's done nothing wrong to me, but if he wants to have a problem, I haven't got a problem with having a problem. And then he's like, nah, bro, I swear he's dissed you, listen to it. Then I get another phone call the next day. Same thing, of some completely different rapper. Same thing. So then I listen to it. And I'm like, no, he's not dissing me, He can't be dissing me. And then I started getting paranoid because I got other cunts coming at me going, he's dissing, you know what I mean? So then I hit Lux up. I said, cuz, I sent him the link. I said, bro, love you, listen. Does it sound like this cunt's dissing me? He didn't even open it. He goes, nah. He knows better than that. You know what I mean? So I was like, all right, fuck, sweet. And then, so then I hit him. I messaged him. I said, bro, call me. Here's my number. He rang me straight. Like, he rang me within 10 minutes. And then I said, bro, ran it down to him. This is what I'm getting told. What's going on? And he's like, no, bro, blah, blah, blah. One of the OGs, I respect you, this and that. So then, and then from then, we just fucking, he ended up putting up a couple of posts on his social media saying, no, it's not a diss, this and that. And then he was keen to jump, he wanted to jump on the track. I said, yeah, sweet, sent it to him. And then, just from that, ended up doing the clip. And then, just back and forth talking. He done the re-up with us, and, it was all good. Fucking went out and met him a few times, me and Lux. And, but then, just he's doing his thing now, and take your hat off to him. He's put the work in, and it's paying off.
So the joint that he had with Turquoise Prince, which is what sort of kicked all this off, can you recall what the actual line was that people were talking about that you thought he dissed?
So going back to the songs we were talking about, Real Talk. So I was known for my Real Talk segments, you know what I mean? And there was something along the lines with the Real Talk stuff, So that's why people were like, yeah. Like I could understand where they were coming from, because at that time I was known for Real Talk 1, 2, 3, 4, you know what I mean? So, but then it was funny because then after that show, after we done the re-up, there was a lot of talk that I stood over him and forced him to do the show. So, and I didn't want that on my name. So I rang him up. I said, cuz, we need to address this, we got to fucking sort it out, because I don't want cunts. I don't want every cunt thing don't do a show for Sesk, he'll fucking rip you off, you know what I mean? All that sort of stuff. So he's like, yeah, sweet, we'll go live, blah, 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 this and that. And then that was the last time I heard from him. I didn't hear from him after that. So he's out doing his thing. So in my book, fuck, if you want to be looked at as the bloke that fucking Sesko stood over and made do a show, well, that's on you then, because I've put it there for you, let's address it. You didn't address it, you know what I mean? So, fuck, it is what it is. But yeah, like I said, take me hat off to him, bro. He's put the work in and he's built that cult following, so.
And that was my next question is, when you guys did that join, that was 2019. Now we're in 2022, and he is, I don't really think it's debatable. He is the biggest Australian rap act in the country.
Yeah.
Now, for someone that, had a rapport with him a few years ago, 2 questions. One, could you tell back then that he was going to pop off? And number 2, why do you think he's had the levels of success that he's had to date?
Talking to him back then, I wouldn't really say I knew he was going to pop off, but from when I first ever met him, when we done the one take with Hustle Hard, the cipher, and to actually just sitting there and having a conversation with him so many years later, I could see the progression, just as a person, you know what I mean? So, but he also, he had that arrogance, and he knew himself. It's only a matter of time before he was going to blow up. Like you could just see it. You could see the presence, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. But yeah, I wouldn't say I knew he was going to be big, but he obviously knew it, because he already acted like he was massive before that, you know what I mean? And with the level of success, I think he played it smart. He started that 420 movement, you know what I mean? He made it feel like home for a lot of people, because a lot of people love fucking Bud, you know what I mean? So it was smart the way he done it. It was just, I can't explain it, but it was smart the way he done it. He made that movement, everyone jumped on board, and he just kept pushing it, you know?
You also mentioned that, you know, when you first came across Chill's stuff, you could hear the influence of Alex Jones.
Yeah.
Now, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, and I think you may have said it in a podcast somewhere maybe, Alex Jones is considered to be, you know, to many, the best Australian rapper ever.
Yeah. He's a lyricist, that kid. He's a fucking, he has, there's no reason why he couldn't be as big as Chill if he kept pushing. You know what I mean? Like, he's got the potential. He had the backing. But yeah, he's hands down one of the best. One of the best to do it.
What is it about him specifically for you that makes you say he's the best?
Just his just the way he constructs his verses. Like, it is very hard to see him on a track with someone and say that this can't kept up with you. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the way he constructed his shit and his word game, and you know what I mean? It's just, there's a lot of rappers, but he's an artist. He's a fucking artist, man.
And so did you guys ever, you know, sit down and work or anything?
We actually got him. So when I started talking to him was around the same time I flew Mike Righteous out. And because of Alex's sound, I wanted him to open up for Mike, you know. So he was all for it, booked his flights, this and that, and then he rings me 10 minutes before the flight. He's like, I'm not mate. It was obviously under the influence of whatever, I don't know, I don't judge. But he was actually, I think he might have been on the run then as well. So he was too paranoid to go to the airport because it was booked in his name, this and that. So he didn't end up coming. But then, so no, all good. But now you do well with the show because you know, we've just wasted flights and accommodation. So yeah, no, all good. So I ended up flying up for the re-up. No, sorry. He came up for T-Rex's mum's fundraiser. He was there, and so Nter was already there. They were there. He was talking to him, and Nter were talking, and I've just turned up. Me, Lux, and we're about 12 deep, and we all had jumpers on. Fuck you, rappers, all right? So we pulled up 12 deep. We walk in, and as we're walking in, he says to Nter, "Bro, he Sesk dirty on me. Sesk and Lux dirty on me because I didn't fly up." And at that point, Nter's noticed us. He's going, go and ask him. He went missing, apparently, right? I didn't even know he was there. But apparently he went missing for about half an hour, and then he come out, and then I seen him. But it was all love, bro. There was no, like, you know, we weren't threatening him. He wasn't threatening us. It was just all love. He knew we fucked up by not coming, and we just sorted it out, and then he ended up jumping on the re-up and killed it on the re-up, so.
And is that the last time that you guys have done, you know, have had any sort of communication?
No, we've spoken a little bit afterwards. As you know, I'm kind of I kind of troll people. So I put up a video of a midget rapping. I was like, I'm going to tell my kids this was Alex Jones, and I'll tag him in it and that, you know. But other than that, just like I said, no hate, no love. It's just he's good at what he does, and take my hat off to him, you know.
In 2020, you got the invitation for Bars of Steel on Triple J.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that, because I think for me personally, what caught me off guard is, for lack of a better term, Bars of Steel tends to cater more for the industry rappers as opposed to the independents. But you being you've ended up on Bars of Steel. How did that come together?
Funny story. So that one, that verse was actually meant for Body the Booth with Bagsy on Body Bag Media. But fuck knows what was going on in his life at the time. He ended up ducking me. And I didn't want to waste it. And I didn't want to just put it out as a fucking freestyle, you know. So I was like I was hit How up. He's like, yeah, bruh, sweet, keen, jump in. I was like, and it just happened from there. But yeah, so that would have been on Body Bag Media if you fucking didn't go MIA.
So then, did you ever follow up the stuff for Body Bag Media, or?
I actually spoke to him the other week. And I said to him, so bro, what happened to Body of the Booth? You know, that's all I wrote to him. And then he's like, sorry, bro, I've been moving, you know. So we've been talking again. So once he's settled in, probably get it popping.
And I guess for myself, I've noticed how Triple J has had a massive impact on Australian rap. I think like when the Hilltop Hoods first popped off, that's when Triple J really picked up on Australian rap. And, you know, here we are, 2022, and Triple J really, you know, gets behind some Australian rap, not so much other. Now, for you personally, do you think that Triple J has had a positive or negative hand in the development of the culture here in regards to Australian rap? Or do you think it's a bit of both, and why?
That's a fucking good question, bro. That's a good one. I think, you know, obviously they've done their part. But as you going back to what you just said, they do favour a lot of artists, a lot of other rappers over rappers that should be there. You know what I mean? For all the poly boys, you know what I mean? Like, obviously there's a lot of favouritism with some of the poly boys, but then also with the black fellas as well. There's a lot of I'm not gonna lie, bro. There's a few artists on there that shouldn't be on there. You know what I mean? And no matter what the race is, there's a few artists on there that straight up aren't worthy to be getting that plug. You know what I mean? There are other artists in the streets now that paid their dues, that they've done all that and still get no recognition. You know.
And so when you're talking about artists that you feel, you know, shouldn't be on that platform, but they are you saying that they're getting those opportunities because of their cultural background?
Some of them, yeah, 100%. But then some of them also because of who you know. So there are artists on there that come fresh out the gate, first song, bang, they're getting the plug. They're doing fucking all this other shit, like a version, all that, you know what I mean? It's like, bro, no, they got to start back in the mud where we all did, you know? But yeah, look, they'll probably stop playing my shit after they see this, but anyway, you know what I mean? I'm right.
And then so, if you don't fit into, you know, quote unquote, the industry artist bucket, why do you think you got, you know, picked up to go on Bars of Steel? And also, I'm assuming you've had some spins on the Triple J show. Why do you think you got picked?
Do you know who I am? Obviously, I feel, I could be wrong, but I feel I have been recognised for what I've done in the past. You know, and obviously there are, you know, when I say my family was well known within the TV industry, majority of that was through the ABC. Now, the ABC work with Triple J. You know what I mean? So, it's yeah. You catching on? It's not about what you know, man. It's all about who you know. You know, like, I've heard some music on there, and it's like, I wouldn't play that for a deaf person. Like, you know what I mean? But that's my opinion, you know, each to their own. If I don't like it, I don't like it. You know, some people don't like it, some people do.
2020. You dropped a single, Captain Shook. Now, I listened to this, 4 or 5 times. And, you know, I haven't heard everything that you've done. You know, I've heard quite a chunk now. out of everything I heard, that was probably my favorite song so far. And I guess, I like the beat. The video wasn't anything fancy, but it did the job. But it was more just the message, like you're really actually saying, you're saying some shit in there.
Well, that's why I chose to do that clip the way that it's done, because it's more of the message for me. You know what I mean? I didn't care about the visuals, but it's just more about getting them to listen, and not only listen but hear what I'm saying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, look, I definitely caught on to what you were saying, and hence why I replayed it like a fair few times, because I really wanted to not miss anything. And for the audience who may not have heard the song, in your words, describe what the single Captain Shook's about and why you wrote it.
Well, just going back to what we were talking about before, cultural education, and not so much just cultural education, but also history education. You know what I mean? There are a lot of artists, Aboriginal artists, that, to me, how do I put it? So that song for me was well overdue. I hadn't done any of that sort of stuff before, because in my heart I felt if I was to do something like that, it was, to me, it's playing the victim. It's playing the victim card. Feel sorry for me, poor me, poor me. So my whole mentality was come through the Australian scene and then bring that Indigenous stuff with me as well. You know what I mean? But for me, it was well overdue, because people needed to know. There are a lot of Indigenous Aboriginal artists out there now that still do stuff like that, but it's more aggressive. It's more catered to one fan base. You know what I mean?
Now, because I listened to it a few times, I actually plucked some lines out of it that, I wanted to bring up and then see if we could break down and discuss. Now, in there, you said you brought diseases, you brought guns, you brought alcohol, you brought drugs. Now, first of all, when you use the word you, who exactly are you referring to?
The first settlement, man. I just had to let it be known, because there's always that stereotype, and there's always that profiling on that, especially what I copped, and my family copped, like, he's a junkie, or he's this, he's Aboriginal, he's that, it's like, hang on a minute, we weren't like this. My people didn't know about alcohol. My people, one of the main killers of my people when the settlement happened was diseases, was the flu. You know what I mean? Like, I just had to. I had to let it be known. Like I said, there are other Indigenous artists, but they don't let it be known like that. They're more of a, you say this about me, well, I'm gonna fucking do this to you. You know what I mean? So I had to, hang on, let's educate for a minute. Let's
zone in for a moment on alcohol and alcoholism. From your experience, seeing whether it's friends, family, etc., how severe do you feel is the whole issue of alcoholism within Aboriginal communities?
From what I've seen, it is very damaging. Can be very damaging. My brother, I witnessed it firsthand. My brother was an alcoholic. He'd wake up, have a long neck for breakfast, long neck for lunch, long neck for dinner, and still, even to this day, one of my uncles is a very bad alcoholic. If times could be changed, I'd fucking change them. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I love the way we're living today, but if I could live in that dream time, I'd fucking love it, man. I'd love it, Yeah, so it is a touchy subject for me. Also because I was a drinker myself, but I was a fucking cockhead when I got drunk. You know, I lost mates because I was drinking and wanted to fight them, and so it takes a massive toll, especially genetically, where humans we're not built to drink alcohol. You know what I mean? That's the reason why it fucks us up. Like, it's just the way it is. But it's fucked. It's just fucked. Plain old fucked,
And another, another, I guess, stereotype that I would hear when I was younger, more so, is the stereotype that, Aboriginal people sniff petrol to get high. And although that may happen when I was younger and I'm learning, because I'm in a foreign country, I'm just learning for the first time. It was painted to me in a picture as if like all Aboriginal people sniff petrol. Now, for you personally, why do you think that stereotype has held on so strong? And do you personally, have you personally experienced any family or friends who have succumbed to petrol sniffing?
The reason why I think that still sticks around to this day is because lack of education, lack of cultural education, lack of history, lack of just wanting to learn. You know what I mean? So, like, most multicultural country we have, but it's the most racist. These kids are growing up today, racist as all fuck, and they don't even know it. You know what I mean? Like, they'll call me Abo. They don't know it's a racial slur. They just think it's short for Aboriginal because that's what they were taught, With the whole petrol sniffing shit, the first and only person I've ever seen sniff petrol was a guy that was trying to hang around my family, and he was actually Australian. You know what I mean? And he was only young. He would have been... Well, he's older than me, but at the time he was only 16, 17. Like, if he couldn't sniff petrol, he was sniffing paint. You know what I mean? Like, so... Me personally, I haven't seen a blackfella sniff petrol, to be honest. We've all had a bit of petrol in our mouth when we're trying to siphon the car. That's about it, So,
another line that you had in that song was, you celebrate massacre, you're celebrating rape, you celebrate divide, you celebrate our pain. Can you, in a nutshell, explain what the Stolen Generation is? And has it had a direct or indirect impact on you and your family?
So obviously, I want to start off with, I know enough about my culture to know that I don't know nothing. You know what I mean? It's so massive. But to my knowledge, with the whole Stolen Generation stuff, obviously it was to get rid of the black people. That was their way of, trying to breed it out and do this and do that, and to give the young Aboriginal kids white Australia to speak, you know what I mean, so to speak. So there was a lot of pain. My grandfather held a lot of that pain, as his mother was part of the Stolen Generation. Now back in them days, like my grandfather's days, it was unspoken of, because growing up, you couldn't speak on that kind of stuff, you know what I mean, for him, so it was very, if they did speak on it, they'd get floggings and whips and shit like that, so there wasn't much spoken around with my family about that. But there is, people probably going to laugh and people going to say it's bullshit, but there is such thing of historical trauma. Personal experience. I watched a movie called Walkabout. It's an Australian movie. The Europeans have a black tracker in chains and stuff like that. They walking through the country trying to find another black fella. They come across small tribes, and the white fellas murder everyone in that tribe, And I went to bed, thought nothing of it. I went to bed. I had 2 nightmares that night. I woke up sweating like this. The nightmares was very similar stuff had happened to my children. You know what I mean? So I'll put that down to historical trauma. So it is massive. But in saying that too, there's also something on the other end of that is something called the lost generation, which was from the European side. I don't know if you've heard of it, but so they were obviously when Australia was discovered, there was low to middle class families in England that were struggling to get by. So the government from there were saying, hey, send your kids over here, help us build. We'll create White Australia. So that's where the White Australia came from. All these kids that come over that were getting money, the parents were getting money for them to come over, them kids never got to go back to their parents. You know what I mean? Like, so as much as we enjoy, like my people enjoyed it, so did some Europeans, you know, and not many people know about the lost generation. You know, the stolen generation's getting out there. People are starting to see and hear it, but not many people know about the lost generation. And that came from my grandfather. And he was a proud black man, you know what I mean? And even he said the same thing, like, not only did we have to go through it, but even some Europeans had to go through it, you know?
AB Originals had a song called January 26th. And that, you know, that became pretty big. Triple J no longer holds the hottest 100 on Australia Day. Triple J heavily push AB Original, or at least they did during that album where that single was from. For you personally, when that song first came out, did that resonate with you? Do you feel like that was something that, you know, would have had a very positive impact for Aboriginal people in the country? What's your thoughts, I guess, overall on AB Original and that particular single and their impact and contribution to Aboriginal communities around Australia?
Yeah. Look, Trials, I haven't had the chance to meet him yet, but he's, from what I know, he's a good dude and stuff like that. He makes some pretty good music. Briggs, I've had the chance to meet him a few times. That song in particular, I thought the first time I heard it, I was like, this is dope, this is mad, you know, and started listening to it a bit more here and there, but then I could be wrong, but I kind of heard a little bit of, look, it's good to be proud of who you are and your culture and this and that, but you also need to express it in a way where you're not causing dividence. You know what I mean? You don't want division. Now, me personally, I like the track, but I do see a little bit of division in there. Like there is kind of, you know, like, yeah, like if, it's hard to say, but you get what I'm saying, you know what I mean? Like, be proud of who you are and where you're from and what you do, but still try not to divide, you know? So I could be wrong though, you know, I could be hearing it wrong, but that's what I hear now. I hear a little bit of, not the whole thing, just a little bit of it, you know?
How do you feel about that day in terms of them changing the date? Do you think that would have a big impact? Do you think it wouldn't really do anything? What are your thoughts around that topic?
I'll be honest, man. A lot of fellas that celebrate Australia Day, I see that it's just to fucking get shit faced and have a couple of days off work, right? That's what I see it as when I see people partying. Now, for those that don't know, for the Aboriginal community, it's a day of mourning for us. You know, we need to do the political correctness shit with that because we, as a nation, weren't labelled Australia until many, many years later, on a different month, on a different day. You know what I mean? So basically, what my people say is, if you want to change it to the correct date, we're happy to party with you. We'll come get smashed shit faced with you. Won't go to work, but it's kind of a spit in our face for people to celebrate For the simple fact, as in that song, it celebrates rape, it celebrates massacres, and you do hear a lot of, oh, it happened years ago, get over it, well, all right, well, get over Anzac Day, you know what I mean? Get over Remembrance Day, like, that's how it is for us. Like, that's our Anzac Day, that's our Remembrance Day, you know what I mean? So, if, in saying that, it's a lot of people that are saying the get over it stuff, they're the ones that are just too ignorant to do their research, too ignorant to respect someone else's culture, you know what I mean? So it is kind of a spit in the face for us.
When you talk about if they changed it to the correct date, then, Aboriginal people would be happy to party. Is there a particular date that Aboriginal people want for that?
No, they could have it the next day, you know what I mean? The 27th, but as of the 26th, it's just, like I said, it's a spit in the face. But if they want to get really politically correct, I think it was May 1904, or was it the 4th of May? I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but that's when Australia became Australia. Beforehand, it was the word was thrown around loosely, but it was never, it wasn't a Commonwealth. It wasn't, you know what I mean? So.
And I've heard the term, in the last couple of years, that this has become like, people are really talking about this now. The term Invasion Day. A lot of people are saying Invasion Day as opposed to Australia Day now. Do you personally use that term? And if not, do you use a different term for that day?
I don't like to use Invasion Day. For me, it is Survival Day. It's celebration of survival of my culture, celebration of survival of my people. You know what I mean? Like we have the oldest culture in the world. We have the most dated back cremation in history. Like, you know what I mean? And so it's survival for me.
When you look at the country, even the world, it's pretty clear to me that black people, whether it's in the United States, South Africa, Australia, have been at disadvantage for a very long time. In hip-hop, let's say from America, at least at the very beginning, it was black people who had the most success in hip-hop. Eminem came through, and now you got some white boys in there that are having some good success too. But it's still in America a black-dominated art form, and in my personal opinion, hip-hop and rap is a black art form. That's my personal. 100%. That's my personal opinion, and people might shoot at me in the comments for saying that, but that's how I feel about it.
But in saying that, bro, it's not even an opinion; it's a fact. You know what I mean? Like, it was created by black people, and it was our way of showcasing what we have. Not me in particular or my people, but in America. You know what I mean?
100%. So that's the way that I've always looked at hip hop. When I look at Australian rap, at least in the beginning, for the most part, it's been very white dominated. It hasn't really been until like the last few years when like Hooligan Hefts and 1-4 and some of these Islander acts now that are really breaking through, has it become a little bit more mixed in terms of cultures participating in hip hop. However, as far as Aboriginal MCs, I'm sure there's lots of them out there in the country, but I don't feel like there's many that have gotten a certain level of success, So, for example, like the names for me that stand out, AB Original, yourself. I'm a massive fan of Koori Rep, and they're the only three that stand out for me off the top of my head. Now,
how good was that Corey Rep diss track for TKO?
well,
That's classic.
you know, while we're on the topic, I mean, shout outs to Corey Rep. Like, he is one of my favorites in the country just based off the 2 disjoints that he did. But yeah, like, there's not many, I feel, Aboriginal rappers that have had big levels of success yet. Although it's a black art form, and although in America you have black rappers having a lot of success, why do you feel that in Australia it's been a bit backwards in comparison to America?
What most people won't understand is you've got the Australian hip hop scene, but then you've also got the Aboriginal hip hop scene, which are 2 completely different scenes. Like, I could grab an Aboriginal hip hop artist, bring him to the Australian scene, put him on show, no one would know him, and then vice versa. And that comes back to what we're talking about with Captain Shook. There are a lot of Aboriginal artists that will stay with that kind of stuff of, you know, my people were the victim, but we're going to come back and attack. That only, you can only rap for a certain fan base for that, you know what I mean? Which is why I chose to come through the Australian scene to, you know what I mean? Because it was different, you know what I mean? I wasn't living that Aboriginal culture. I didn't know much about it when I was rapping, you know what I mean? So it was, yeah, I feel if some artists open up more and be more versatile, then 100% there are some fucking dope Aboriginal artists out there, man. Like, if you look at AB Original, they're not, they have more of the Australian mainstream sound, you know what I mean? You know, and Trials, for example, he's versatile as a motherfucker, you know, he's good, he can do it all, that bloke. But yeah, I think kind of most artists are catering to one fan base.
The lesson. 927. Oh, yeah.